Hello and welcome to Web Relates. Today we're looking at the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Our first story is by Whites. Force me to modify my work, lose 80% of your revenue. This just happened today, so bear with my storytelling as I do tend to ramble and or mix things up. I'm a bit of a recluse at work, doing my own thing in my own little office, just crunching numbers and generally just churning out reports. I'm also the only one in this smallish company with any sort of professional license, so I'm the point person for any related issues. Today, like any other day, I'm just here in my little office and working, when the VP comes in and demands changes on one of my worksheets. Cue me explaining why the changes he wanted didn't make sense, as the math wouldn't add up, nor make sense if analyzed. Think 5 minus 2 equals x, but he wanted x to be equal to 2. So I go on for about 15 minutes, even making theoretical formulas in the extremities just to highlight my point. But no, Goblin Number Cruncher does what Big Boss Goblin wants. So I ask to be emailed the instructions so I can print it. He complies, as he knows I tend not to remember these kinds of instructions that go against my normal way of doing things, but also adds to do it retroactively as well, as it being the new policy of handling it. Important to note is that my name doesn't appear in these reports, as they are the ones who sign it after reviewing it. So I wasn't worried, and also the email I requested added a nice cushion of safety. After 30 minutes of me pumping these new and revised reports out, they finally noticed that while it did affect that one particular report very positively, all others would result to the bills and revenue going down by about 80%. Our billables are a percent of the numbers we come up with in the reports. So who comes into my little office and disturbs my Theoden and Pippin Funko Pops? Is it the Goblin Boss? Yes. Sadly, my Funkos didn't stand a chance against paperwork being slammed down on them. Cue him yelling at how this is going to screw us, what was I thinking applying the change he wanted to all reports, etc. I just pointed to the printout of his email with my mouth still slightly open. But no, he still keeps on yelling. Does Gandalf come and rescue me? No. An even bigger Goblin Boss does, the President, who asks what's going on. The guy knows I'm considering leaving the company and really doesn't want to lose me, which is why I got an office, almost no supervision or micromanagement, and generally left alone to do my own thing on my own time. I do stuff around 3 to 5 times faster, in addition to being consulted for various queries throughout the day, but I can slack off if I don't feel like doing much. I wish the ending was much more exciting, but no. Just got a bigger office further away from people, and even less supervision for me, but no repercussions on the VP. I think the internet and I agree that the VP probably got heavily chewed out by the big boss. It's just a shame you didn't get to see it. Our next story is by Storyskiller. You want me to clear the dead grass or I'll be fined? I will clean exactly my property. This story started in 2017, was repeated every year until this year, and I have promised my father-in-law to repeat the compliance if it happens again. My in-laws used to live just outside of town. They moved this past fall to my mother-in-law's home island, and we moved in their place. And when I say just outside, I mean about 2 meters outside of the city plan to be exact, and important for later. The city plan reached up to the middle of the dirt road that separated their property with the neighboring one. So, back in spring of 2017, my in-laws received a letter from the city council about cleaning their property from dead grass in preparation for summer due to fire hazards, or they would be fined. The letter and the deadline, end of May, were normal. What wasn't normal was the area named. It was their property, the property next to them inside city limits, and the road in between. My father-in-law took the letter to the council and explained that the property next to him didn't belong to him and couldn't clean it. They appeared to accept it, but something was nagging him. Now, my father-in-law had worked in exactly 2 companies in life, both of them handling big government contracts, and his main job was to take care of red tape and government bureaucracy. So he found the exact law that said that the owner was responsible for their property, and the city was responsible for any roads and any properties inside city limits that an owner couldn't be found. He had also found, through his connections, that the local council was under investigation for misappropriation of funds, including the funds for cleaning lots that were considered fire hazards. The tactic they used was to include lots that fell under their responsibility to nearby owners, and either intimidate with the fear of a fine to clean them, or fine them and pocket the money. My father-in-law decided to become creative. First, he gathered all the plans related to his property and the one next to him. Next, he cleared his property. He was planning to do that anyway. But only that. He cleared the part of the road that fell outside city limits. And then he waited. The deadline passed, and about 10 days later, a hefty fine arrived. My father-in-law challenged officially. The council tried to reinforce the fine. My father-in-law challenged it again, presenting his evidence on an open forum of the council. The council insisted they were on the right, and if my father-in-law didn't pay, they would take legal action. My father-in-law agreed happily to the legal action. This led to the court appointing an outside inspector to check the property, the city plans, and the work my father-in-law had done. The council not only lost the case and had to pay legal fees, but were forced to an outside audit that led to a couple of councilmen facing criminal charges. Every year since then, my father-in-law used to clean his property and exactly up to the middle of road next to him. That duty has been passed down to me now, which I fulfilled this year. That's actually great. We finally have a malicious compliance that fulfills both the letter and the spirit of the law, and still comes out with OP on top. Our next story is by Dark Moon Firelight, using the system to defeat stupid requests. I've been at my new job long enough that I can share this now without feeling like there'd be blowback. I'm a web designer. Every place I've been, I get put in charge of the fleet of websites whatever company or group is running, and then I go through and do my thing, making sure the sites are tight, efficient, and user-friendly as I can. Web design is like any task. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, and for websites that means the designer in charge has to be the arbiter of clutter. If things get to be too much on a page, or requests come in that would degrade the UI of the site, we had to reject them. We want sites to be fast, light, and easy to use. Being the person in charge of the sites, I was generally the one to reject requests. We shouldn't do this because X, Y, and Z reasons. I was told by my bosses that I couldn't say no, and that I had to be customer-focused, even when the requests to update the site were coming from those without technical knowledge, or the desire to understand what I was saying, and the reason why I wouldn't do something. This could also go over on boomers being fools, because most of the people that hated me, someone younger than them, telling them no, were also part of that generational set. Regardless, after a number of times of them getting a no because from me, them going over my head to my boss, and then my boss saying, just do it, I had to come up with a solution. If they were going to go around my informal process based on my knowledge and experience, I would formalize it. At the organization I was working at, we had standards, which were signed off by the higher-ups and had the word of law and guidance, which did get some sign-offs but didn't go through the lengthy formalization process. Standards you had to follow, but everyone thought guidance worked the same way. That was the loophole. I wrote a 60-page web update guide going over everything in the process, ensuring that any question I'd been asked, anything that needed to get done, any stupid question that had come my way over the previous 2 years was answered. I then got my boss to sign off on it, and then sent it around, and also posted it on the internal use portal too. From that point forward, the guide was what we followed. Best part, and this is the malicious part for those wondering, I never had to get any changes to the document approved. It was designed as a living document, and I was the sole person in charge of it. Requester: hey, I want to do this on the page. Me goes and edits the web update guide to specifically disallow what they were requesting. Oh, I'm sorry. As per the web update guide, we can't do this. Worked like a charm and made my job easier from that day forward. Our next story is by The Bearded Guy. Don't take every second Thursday off? Okay. Many years ago, I worked in aged care as a personal care assistant, the lowest rung of nursing staff, basically responsible for all the physical labor, such as showering residents, assisting them to go to the toilet, getting them in and out of bed, that sort of thing. I loved my job, I genuinely did, and for a while worked at an agency going from place to place before getting poached by a specific nursing home, which is where the malicious compliance takes place. I had been working there for about a month, doing 4 days a week, all afternoons 3 to 10 p.m, and 2 of those afternoons were back-to-back Wednesday and Thursday, and this is where the other nurse comes into play. Every second Wednesday, without fail, she would call in about 20 minutes before her shift, the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. overnight shift, was due to begin, leaving no time to get agency staff in to take over. Now I could wait until they arrived, but by the time they got there it would be likely after 12, and my trains home would not be running. So in the end I took on a double shift, 3 p.m. to 7 a.m., leaving me tired, mentally and physically, trying to get home on a packed morning rush hour train. So not much fun. But given the other option was to leave my residence without proper care, and that would never ever happen. This meant that by the time I got home, it was around 9:30 a.m., and couldn't get immediately to sleep due to needing to eat, shower, and do the plethora of tasks needed to be done before going to bed for the day, meaning I wasn't able to get to sleep until around 12:30, and my train to work left at 1. This was obviously untenable, and after trying to do a double, followed by a regular shift sans sleep a few times, I realized I was becoming a danger to my residents, my fellow staff members, and myself, due to not being able to maintain concentration. In the end, I told my registered nurse that on the Thursdays after a double, I would not be able to do my shift for fear of someone getting hurt, which would open the nursing home and myself to potential legal trouble, not to mention someone suffering because of my choices. So this had been happening for about 6 months now, when I get called up to the office of the owner, who promptly sat me down and berated me for taking every second Thursday off and not being a team player. I tried to explain why it was that I was taking those Thursdays off, but she would not listen, so in the end I walked out with a write-up and a threat of termination if this behavior continued. Fast forward to the next Wednesday when, as usual, the other nurse called in 20 minutes before shift, starting saying she couldn't make it, leaving us a nurse down for the night. So the only person on for that entire shift would be a registered nurse, and you can't lift or assist people with only one person without using a hoist, and even then you are meant to have 2 people for safety reasons. The nurse in charge of afternoons rolled her eyes after the call and said, "Looks like you're doing another double, bearded guy." To which I replied, "I can't. And since staying until agency staff get here is not an option, since I wouldn't be able to get home, I suggest you call the owner and see what she recommends. And if she needs me to stay, I will, but only if she gives me the direction herself and then confirms it with you." After 10 minutes, the owner hadn't answered any attempts to call, and I said, "Sorry, I have to leave," and the registered nurse for the night shift began to get angry, to which I responded, "I will get fired if I stay here and then need to take tomorrow off, or someone could get harmed if I stay and then work. Neither of these is a great outcome, so I have to go." Now I knew they were never going to be able to get agency staff with such short notice, and that even by the slimmest of chances they could find someone, it would be several hours between registering the request and someone showing up. So I walked out the door and hung around the corner for half an hour, knowing I would get a call sooner rather than later, and that I needed to be close by in order to get back and ensure my residents got the care they needed overnight, and had my idiot grin to wake up to in the morning, especially for the 3 people who loved early morning showers. The call came, I returned, and 2 nights later I got a call from the owner, who authorized me to work doubles as needed and take the next day off for safety reasons. As far as I know, the nurse who did the late call-ins was still working there when I left a year later. In the end, my residents got the care they deserved and I got to get some sleep after working 15 hours straight. That's a bit of a strange one. That nurse must have had some kind of favoritism going for her. Okay, that's the end, everyone. That's all I have for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.